June 4, 1944. South Atlantic Ocean. Roughly 150 nautical miles west of Cape Blanco, French West Africa. The math said he should be dead. By the end of the day, history said otherwise. At 11:09 hours, the sonar trace tightened into a hard return. Clean. Metallic. Moving fast. The operator aboard USS Guadalcanal didn't look up. He didn't need to. The contact geometry told the story. Depth increasing. Speed climbing. Evasion spiral. A German submarine was running. The hunter-killer group designated Task Group 22.3 had been at sea for weeks, burning fuel and patience in equal measure. 5 destroyer escorts. 1 escort carrier. A single purpose: locate, fix, and destroy U-boats before they reached the convoy lanes. The Atlantic in June was warm on the surface and lethal beneath it. Thermoclines bent sound. Pressure crushed steel. Air ran out faster than hoped. The submarine below was U-505, a Type IXC boat, 87 meters long. 4 bow torpedo tubes. 2 stern. 22 torpedoes were carried when fully loaded. Diesel-electric propulsion. Designed for range, not comfort. Crew, 59. She had already been hunted for hours. At 11:13, the destroyer escort USS Chatelaine rolled into the attack position. The range was close to 800 yards. Speed 12 knots. Sonar locked fire pattern. Depth charges left the rails in controlled intervals. 5 seconds. 7. 9. They fell in sequence. Steel cylinders tumbling into black water. Fuses ticking against pressure diaphragms. At 11:15. The first charges detonated underwater. The sound was not an explosion but a compression, an immense hammer striking the ocean itself. Inside U-505, light bulb shattered. A gauge burst. Men were thrown from their bunks. The boat shuddered and rolled hard to port. Captain Harold Langer had been in command for less than a year. He was 34. A professional submariner. He had already survived one patrol where U-505 returned to base on one engine, half-flooded and barely afloat. He understood damage calculations. He understood hull stress limits. He also understood the odds. The second depth charge pattern went off closer. Electrical power failed. The boat lost trim. Stern dipped. Bow rose. Water sprayed through compromised seals. The pressure hull held, but just at 11:17, Langer ordered an emergency blow. Compressed air roared into the ballast tanks. The boat lurched upward, breaking the surface at an angle no commander ever wanted. A submarine surfacing in the middle of a coordinated American task group was a death sentence. On the Guadalcanal's flight deck, sailors looked up as the dark hull punched through white water less than 700 yards away. The U-boat's deck gun was unmanned. Its anti-aircraft weapons were idle. The conning tower hatch burst open as men scrambled out, coughing diesel fumes and saltwater. American gunners did not fire immediately. This was not hesitation. It was confusing. The U-boat was not fighting back. At 11:18, Captain Langer gave the order he had sworn never to give: abandon ship. Inside the boat, the scuttling charges should have been set. Valves opened. Timers armed. Procedures followed to the second. Every German U-boat crew trained for this moment. Capture was unacceptable. Technology must not fall into enemy hands, but training assumes time. U-505 was rising too fast. The deck was already awash. Men were climbing out without helmets, without boots. One engineer failed to set a critical valve. Another missed a charge. When the last men jumped into the sea, the submarine did not sink. She drifted. Engines stopped. Slight starboard list. Propellers still on the USS Chatelaine's bridge. Lieutenant Commander Daniel Gallery Jr. stared through binoculars. A surfaced, intact enemy submarine. Crew abandoning ship. No self-destruction visible. The Gallery understood instantly what this meant. He ordered a boarding party. This was not doctrine. This was not authorized. U.S. Navy policy was explicit. Destroy enemy submarines. Do not risk personnel. Do not attempt capture. The Gallery ignored it. At 11:22, a small boat was lowered from the destroyer escort USS Pillsbury. 8 men aboard, armed with pistols, knives, and 1 Thompson submachine gun. No breathing apparatus. No demolition tools. They rowed toward a German submarine that could sink at any second. In the water around them, German sailors floated, exhausted and stunned. Some waved. Some didn't move. Sharks were known in these waters, but none appeared. The greater danger lay beneath the steel hull ahead. If the scuttling charges detonated, the boarding party would be torn apart. If the boat flooded suddenly, they would be dragged under. They went anyway. AT 1127. The first American sailor grabbed the ladder on U-505's conning tower. The steel was slick with oil and seawater. He climbed without looking back. Below decks, the submarine was silent. No engines. No voices. No alarms. The math said no one should be alive inside. History had not finished calculating yet. The first man through the hatch was Lieutenant Albert David. 11:28 hours, but he dropped into the conning tower feet first. Pistol up, heart rate already past caution. The air inside was hot and foul, thick with diesel exhaust and burned insulation. The emergency lights were dead. Only grey daylight leaked down the ladder. No movement. Behind him, 7 more Americans followed in tight sequence. They were volunteers. None had trained for this. They had been briefed in under a minute. Secure the boat, stop the flooding, find the codes if they existed. The ladder led down into the control room. David paused at the last rung. He listened. Water dripped somewhere aft. A slow, irregular sound. No voices. No machinery. The boat was wounded but not dying. Yet, they stepped off the ladder. The control room of a Type 9 submarine was compact and dense with equipment. Valves, wheels, pressure gauges, periscope shafts. The deck plates were slick with oil and water, already ankle-deep in places. David swept left, then right, empty. The Germans had left in a hurry. A chart table lay open. A coffee mug rolled back and forth with the boat's slight list. A clipboard floated near the floor. Pages soaked through. A sailor shouted from the forward compartment. Torpedoes. 16 feet long. Steel casings intact. Warheads armed. The Americans moved carefully. No sparks. No drop tools. One mistake would turn the submarine into scrap metal, and then with it. The real danger was the flooding. Water was entering through open sea valves in the engine room. Standard scuttling procedure. If not stopped, buoyancy would be lost within minutes. David split the party. 2 men forward to secure the torpedo rooms. 2 aft to locate the valves. 1 remained topside as a lookout. The rest began closing what they could identify. They had no schematics. They worked by labels, German labels. Handwheels were turned at random. Some resisted. Some spun freely. Water slowed in one compartment and surged in another. The submarine groaned as pressure shifted unevenly across the hull. AT 1136. The stern dipped another degree. The Americans were running out of time. After, in the engine room, machinist's mate Earl Trusino reached a valve marked Auslass. He didn't know the word. He knew the direction of flow. He cranked it shut with both hands. The water level dropped inches. Another valve. Another turn. The flooding slowed. Trusino yelled forward. David acknowledged. They were stabilizing the boat, but only barely. At 11:41, the Americans found the real prize. In the radio room, papers lay scattered across the floor. Code books. Signal logs. Cipher tables. The kind of material U-boat crews were ordered to destroy first, even before abandoning ship. They had not had time. David understood the significance immediately. This was not just a captured submarine. This was a living archive, but the boat was still in danger. Electrical power was gone. Batteries were partially flooded. If seawater reached the cells, chlorine gas could form. Lethal in seconds. Invisible. The Americans smelled nothing yet. That was not reassurance. AT 1145. USS Pillsbury reported success by signal lamp. Boarding party aboard enemy submarine. Attempting to save the vessel. On the Guadalcanal's bridge, Commander Gallery exhaled for the first time in half an hour. Then he looked at the sea state. Swell increasing. Wind steady at 12 knots. The submarine was drifting broadside. He ordered a tow. That created another problem. U-505's engines were dead. Her rudder was jammed. Towing a damaged submarine meant rigging lines while standing on a steel deck that could submerge at any moment. T 1152. American sailors returned fire hoses and pumps down the ladder. They passed them hand to hand. The interior grew louder as pumps engaged, fighting gravity inch by inch. The German survivors in the water watched silently. They were exhausted. Many were wounded from the depth charges. Captain Langer floated among them, blood visible at his scalp. He had struck his head while surfing. His eyes were open, unfocused. He did not look at the submarine. He believed it was already lost. T-1205. The first tow line was secured. The submarine lurched as tension came onto the cable. For a moment, the stern dipped dangerously, threatening to pull the line under. The Americans adjusted speed to 3 knots. The hull steadied. Inside, the boarding party felt the motion change. Pumps gained ground. The water level stabilized just below knee height. They had done the impossible part. Now they had to keep it alive to T-1218. Chlorine gas alarms were improvised, men sniffing the air, watching each other's faces for sudden panic or coughing. None came at AT-1230. The U-boat was declared temporarily secure. The sun climbed higher. The heat inside the submarine became oppressive. Sweat ran into my eyes. Hands cramped from wrenching valves. No one rested. They were not finished. The Americans still did not know what else might be hidden aboard, and they had no way of knowing that. U-505 had been carrying something more valuable than torpedoes, something that would reach far beyond the Atlantic. By early afternoon, the math had shifted. The submarine should have sunk. Instead, it was moving, slowly, reluctantly, toward history. June 4th, 1944. Midday, the towing speed never exceeded 3 knots. Any faster and the damaged hull risked structural failure. Any slower and the submarine would wallow broadside in the swell, shipping water faster than the pumps could clear it. Every adjustment was measured. Every order is deliberate. Inside U-505, the boarding party rotated duties. 2 men on pumps. 2 checking compartments for renewed flooding. 1 monitoring the batteries. 1 guarding the radio room. They found more documents, navigation charts, patrol logs, fuel consumption records, all intact. The Germans had intended to destroy them, but chaos had intervened. The abandonment had been too fast. The scuttling is incomplete. Day T-1310, they reached the forward battery compartment. The waterline had crept higher. Trocino calculated quickly. Pumping alone would not be enough. The boat needed power. He made a decision no one had trained for. He rerouted electrical connections manually, bypassing damaged sections, jury-rigging a minimal system. At 1327, lights flickered on in parts of the submarine. Weak. Unsteady. Enough. The pumps gained pressure. The chlorine threat receded above deck. Sailors worked the towlines with gloved hands, salt cutting into skin. The sun beat down. Fatigue accumulated. No one complained. The submarine was too valuable. Commander Gallery ordered strict radio silence, and O transmission could reveal what they had captured. The German prisoners, 58 men, including Captain Langer, were taken aboard the Guadalcanal. They were given medical treatment. Food. Water. They were told nothing. The Americans removed insignia from uniforms. Destroyed German paperwork identifying the submarine. Every effort was made to convince Berlin that U-505 had sunk with all hands. The deception held June 7th, 1944, after 3 days of slow towing. The task group reached Bermuda. The submarine entered port under cover of darkness. No flags. No announcements. The harbor lights were dimmed. Armed guards surrounded the pier. Naval intelligence teams boarded immediately. They catalogued everything: torpedoes, engines, hydrophones, radar detectors. Then they reached the radio room. There, secured in a cabinet, was an Enigma cipher machine, Naval configuration. Alongside it, codebooks valid through June 1944. Short signal keys. Weather cipher tables, current material. This was the critical decision point. The Allies were already reading portions of German naval traffic through Bletchley Park, but gaps remained. Changes in procedures caused blackouts that lasted weeks. Convoys were still being sunk during those windows. U-505 closed one of those gaps. The intelligence was rushed, quietly, to Britain. Analysts confirmed it within hours. The Atlantic balance shifted again. Captain Harold Langer recovered from his injuries in captivity. He was never told his submarine had been captured intact. He believed it had sunk after abandonment. He believed his duty had been fulfilled. The U-boat crew spent the rest of the war in a prisoner camp in Louisiana. Isolated. No Red Cross correspondence. No news. Silence was part of the operation. U-505 herself survived the war. She studied extensively. Her systems were stripped, examined, and documented. Her design weaknesses unnoted. Her strengths, too. After the war, she was spared scrapping. In 1954. She was moved inland, an impossible journey by river and rail, until she reached Chicago. There, she became a museum ship today. U-505 rests inside the Museum of Science and Industry. She is the only German U-boat captured at sea by the US Navy during World War II. Her capture produced no single dramatic explosion. No victory headline. No immediate public celebration. Its impact was quieter. More convoys reached Europe intact. More fuel arrived. More men crossed the Atlantic safely. 2 days after U-505 was captured. Allied forces landed in Normandy. The timing was a coincidence. The effect was not. The math said the submarine should have sunk on June 4, 1944. History says it did not, and because it did not, thousands of sailors lived who never knew why.